afternoon from Castle Goring, from Mickey and from me. Mickey is joining us only for the greetings because she is going back to do some work. I will show you a little clip at the end of all of this, of the work Mickey has been doing. She is being a sterling mother. She feeds her whuppies so much that they have ended up expanding exponentially. They are almost now like the European Union, everywhere. Eileen Wood says, Lady C, can you please give us your opinion on the New Orleans Mardi Gras float in honour of the Harkles? Thank you so much for sharing your opinion on Ukraine. You're so educational as always. Well, that's two things in one. So if I may, I will dispense with the more contentious of the two first, and then we can get on to rather lighter matters. I have had a comment from someone called Amuse Her, which is a pun. It could be amuse her or amuse, like, you know, the muses who were inspiration for poets, etc. Her. So it's a pun. And I must thank this person because they have done me a very great service. They have introduced me to one of the most wonderful thinkers of the age. I had never heard of him, so I will read out the comment. Anyone interested in a realist's point of view regarding the Ukrainian crisis may wish to listen to Professor John Mearsheimer's lecture regarding Russia and the Ukraine at the University of Chicago 6 years ago. It is on YouTube. His words are spot on. I had never heard of Professor Mearsheimer before. What a revelation. I have delved not too deeply because I've not had time, but deeply enough to know that he and I are in accord on absolutely every point, whether it is with regards to the Middle East, Russia, Ukraine, China, Japan, Australia, India, Pakistan. I would suggest that you look him up. His name is John Joseph Mearsheimer, Mearsheimer. He was born in Brooklyn on the 14th of December 1947. He is an American political scientist and international relations scholar. He belongs to the realist school of thought, as do I. And it has to be said, anybody who doesn't have a foot in reality, which is the camp we should all be firmly anchored in. He has been described as the most influential realist of his generation. He was elected to the American Academy of Arts and Sciences in 2003. He is a recipient of the American Political Science Association's 2020 James Madison Award. He is a very distinguished scholar. The awards committee cited him as one of the most cited international relations scholars in the discipline. But his works are well read beyond the academy as well, and they should be. They absolutely should be. In 2011, he, under the imprint of the Oxford University Press, printed Why Leaders Lie, and I would recommend everybody read it. Because there is no doubt we, the public, are being lied to on a massive scale by our governments. It is an analysis of why politicians lie internationally. In The Great Delusion, Liberal Dreams and International Realities, Yale University Press 2018, he presents a critique of the geopolitical strategy he refers to as a liberal hegemony. His definition of liberal hegemony includes a three-part designation of it as an extension of Woodrow Wilson's original initiatives to make the world safe by turning its governments into democracies, turning geopolitical economic initiatives towards open markets compatible with democratic governments, and opening up and promoting other democratically liberal international social and cultural societies on a global scale of inclusion. He states that liberal hegemony represents a great delusion and that much more weight should be associated with nationalism as a policy of enduring geopolitical value, that the delusions be associated with liberal hegemony. I have a phrase for the same concept. I call it the universal westernized hegemony. This is the objective of the Western world, to create a universal polity that is going to be westernized in values, in behaviors, in conduct. There are other words for it which I am uncomfortable with using, but I would recommend that everybody read Professor Mearsheimer's, especially his 2019 Bound to Fail, The Rise and Fall of the Liberal International Order. It is a paper that was published 3 years ago. You can download it, and it is very enlightening. I cannot thank this person enough for introducing me to Professor Mearsheimer. A great thinker is great wealth, because there is nothing, in my opinion, more life-enhancing than genuine knowledge. And now, to answer the first part of the sentence, which in fact, and now to answer the first part of the question, which I am going to link with Anna Perkins' question. Hello, Lady C, Mickey and those dear little whappies. You will see them at the end of this. They've grown so much this last week, I'm telling you, it's no surprise. They're never off the teat. It's just amazing. Poor Mickey sometimes has to flee and go under the bed. Otherwise, they're either sleeping or suckling. It is such a joy to behold, I cannot tell you. One is just covered in life enhancement. It's just wonderful. Did you also see the wonderful tribute from New Orleans by creation of the Royal Float for Mardi Gras, featuring the unflushable Prince Henry placed upon a toilet? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And the message was, Harry's such a huge turd that he can't even get down the lavatory bowl, much less be flushed. And as for Meg's baby, well, she didn't seem to feature quite so prominently in what I saw, but I'll tell you, it shows one thing: Sunshine Sachs is successful because they are now sufficiently topical that they have a float, admittedly sending them up, but they still have a float. So to those of you who think Harry and Meghan, it's all decline all the way, and that under no circumstances are they ever going to prevail in any way, shape or form, I hate to disappoint you, but this is evidence that on some level they are prevailing. On another level, it also confirms that everybody's on to them. I mean, really, to be enthroned on a lavatory seat, very, very dicey. Very dicey. You know, there's one thing about being known, and there's something else about being desirable. They may be known, but I tell you, that float said it all. Can't flush the turd, it's so big. Nicole Hetherington says, are you aware that one of the entities listed on Archewell's site is a board member of change.org? I wasn't aware of that, actually, because I've never looked at the Archewell site, and I don't intend to look at it. People send me stuff about it, and I am informed to the extent of what I need to reply upon. But no, I don't look at it, and I don't intend to look at it. I don't intend them to harvest my data, which is evidently one of the things they do when you go upon their site. No doubt this will likely stall the petition requesting that her H's status be abated. Well, of course, my dear, you could have a point. But if change.org is a regular, honest organisation, it shouldn't stop people from making their point of view felt upon that petition. If Harry and Meghan were able to nobble change.org, that would be a very sad day for the world, commercially and ethically. Also, the fact that the petition has done only modestly well is clear. People aren't that invested in it. They're more invested in talking about him losing his titles and having them put into abeyance than actually doing something. If they were that invested in having something done, more people would have done something about it. We need to be realistic in this world. You know, I mean, it's as I used to say to friends of mine, oh, I love him so much, his eyes, his chest, oh, I just love his biceps and the smell of his neck, blah, 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 why? And he hasn't phoned. I wonder if he's broken his finger, or maybe he was abducted by Martians, or maybe he's got pneumonia, or maybe he's been diagnosed with a bad case of heart conditions that are too awful to go into, and he doesn't want to let me know because he doesn't want to upset me. No, sweetie pie, the reason why he didn't phone is he wasn't interested. I mean, it's as simple as that. One really does need to cut to the chase and cut out the bull if we cut out a lot of the bull and stick to the realities of situations, the world would be a far better place to live in. Joyce Cutner says, he always says my wonderful wife. He never calls her Meghan. She always stares in his face when he's speaking. Anyone gets awards these days for anything? It has lost its meaning. Well, Harry and Meghan got an award because he's a white man who married a woman of colour. And they have played the race card. In my opinion, detrimentally. In the opinion of many people I know, detrimentally. But they have played the race card. And they have been honoured by an organisation that was created for the advancement of coloured people. And if it advances the cause of coloured people to have a coloured princess, and notice the way I have said it, I am going and measuring my words off the name of the organisation. I don't blame them for using that if they feel it will enhance their organisation. I happen to think it's a shocking lack of judgment, because if Harry and Meghan have done anything, they have put back racial harmony and racial progress. They haven't advanced it. And yes, he calls her publicly my wonderful wife, and she beams beatifically. My universe, my sun, my moon. Oh, nobody has loved you as much as I do since your mummy died. I am the living embodiment of maternal love. Oedipus Rex, look at me, look at you. I just adore you. And he soaks it up. Because both of them are seriously disordered personalities, in my opinion, going off their conduct and what I have been told about them. I am getting ready in the near future to disclose what I know about Harry's book and what the narrative arc is. You couldn't make it up. I mean, on some level it's hysterically funny, and on another level, I give out, spare me. But yes, my wonderful wife. Any man can be led to believe that his wife is wonderful if she agrees with the fact that, oh, you're so brilliant. H, you're just the most brilliant person that God put on this earth. You woke up and opened your eyes and you put one foot in front of the other. My God, I married a genius. A genius. Now, H, even though you're a genius, you don't know everything that I do. So you need to remember that when we enter the room, when I pat you on the back, you let me go in front of you, because remember, you're the star of the show, but you're so luminous that I need to pave the way for you. And let me do all the talking, H, because really, you're too precious to waste your breath on mere humanity. I'm humble. I was born into a disadvantaged world. I never went to any private schools, nor was I paid, nobody paid for me to go to university. No, I hustled those buns meaningfully and womanfully and horizontally and vertically and every other killy that there was. I was just hustling, because I'm a product of deprivation, H, while you are a product of privilege. Joanne Reynolds says, to get internationally protected person's status means that in the USA they would have diplomatic status and would get US government protection paid by US taxpayers. Absolutely correct, sweetie pie. It means diplomatic immunity and Secret Service protection. In the US, people are really beginning not to like them. Taxpayers here will be very angry. To give private citizens police protection, it would mean city and state governments. It would cost, she skipped out the word cost, city and state governments a lot of money. What do you think? I think if they succeed, wherever they live, they're going to be loathed. They're going to create a scenario whereby people are going to deplore them because they are a burden on the taxpayer. That's what I think. And I think they are in what they think is a win-win situation, and I think they are in a no-win situation. But they think they are in a win-win situation because if Harry loses, it's the mean and nasty British people. And Meghan's, oh God, golly gee, I don't have to go to the United Kingdom anymore, ever. Nor do I have to take my children of colour, the children who are so dark that, my gosh, if they appeared in a room at midnight, people would think they were a ghost, they're so white. But they're children of colour. And let me play that colour card for all it's worth, because I'm a proud, confident woman of colour as well. And I can prove it. Mummy, come here. Sit down. We need everybody to know that you are a woman of colour too. But why did you have to have all those white ancestors? Why couldn't they have all been black? Oh, but I suppose that's a good thing, actually, because then I'd have really had a problem with the plastic surgery and the skin tones, wouldn't I? So I take it back, Mummy. I take it back. Yes, I'm glad that you're just 3/5 black and 2/5 white, and that makes me practically white, and that makes my children, well, there may be a drop, but it sure doesn't show. Isn't that just awful? It doesn't show. Why am I smiling so delightedly? Oh gosh, think of all the money that we can save on plastic surgery. No need for noses and all sorts of fillers to reconfigure the face so it's more Caucasian looking. Wunderbar. You couldn't make any of it up, I tell you. The Queen of Kingsbury says, actually, Lady C, on the awards ceremony, the president of NAACP pronounced it as NAACP, as you did in your first video talking about it. I've always heard and known it as NAACP, but he spelt out the acronym. Thank you, my dear. Thank you. Yes, people remonstrated with me, and I'm always happy if I'm in the wrong to put my hands up. And I sincerely believed I was in the wrong. I haven't lived in New York for nearly 50 years, 47 years. And truth be told, even when I lived in New York, the NAACP was of absolutely no interest whatsoever to me, if the truth be known. Nor was protesting with the Vietnam War or anything. I had really serious problems of my own. I fought for my survival. I didn't have any energy to give over, to be protesting and to be indulging my conscience. I had to survive. So the reality is, whatever it was called would have meant very little to me then. Linda M. Tuttle says, what? You were criticized for saying NAACP? Yet, even though Americans are banned from referring to people of colour as coloured people, the NAACP is free to claim to work for the advancement of coloured people. I am sick of everything seeming like mirages in the desert. I couldn't agree more. The constant posturing and pontificating and BSing, to be blunt about it all. People are hating, fighting, even dying for what they think is real, when most is interpretation and often found later to have never been real at all. My dear, I couldn't agree more. Whether it's fussing about how something is said or war between countries, everyone seems to take a side, believing everything good about their chosen position and at the ready to destroy those who think differently. I, for one, believe nothing I see or hear. A healthy skepticism is always desirable. I'm a person of faith, so gauge what I believe by the old standard of what would create, build, comfort, or heal. Very wise objectives and bases for coming to an informed decision. If it constricts, destroys, worries, or kills, it's simply wrong in my mind. I think the outcome of this whole thing would be remarkably changed for the better if every country were to send wounded war veterans of 80 plus years of age to the negotiating table to work out a solution. I have to tell you, my dear Linda M. Tuttle, if you were here, I would smack you with a huge kiss on your cheek. I've never heard anybody else come up with a solution like that. But yes, I think older war veterans would actually be wonderful to set a proper agenda, because they would know what war is about, what suffering is about. They wouldn't have any time for the pontifications to which too many people are subject as they go around blowing hot air thinking that they are elucidating upon a subject, when in fact all they're doing is indulging their emotional, I'm trying to find a polite word, their emotional posturings. And yes, it's nice to care, but caring doesn't mean pointless pontification. It means trying, in my opinion, to come up with real solutions to problems. we keep on coming back to this word rel, R-E-A-L, and reality. But reality is something that the Western world, especially since the advent of the movies, have decided to play with. You know, dreams can come true. And I'm not saying we shouldn't dream, but it's okay to have your head in the clouds if you have your feet on the ground. But if your feet are not on the ground and your head is in the clouds, you have a problem. And we seem to live in a culture that believes that reality is something that can be always overcome with desire, and it can't. And I'm all in favor of the fulfillment of desires and ambitions where they are positive and appropriate. But where they are going to be ultimately destructive, no, I'm sorry. Binky Bink says, odd the way Prince Charles gets savaged in the press for clearing a path to citizenship for one extraordinarily charitable person. All the while Boris is clearing paths to citizenship for all the hundreds of thousands who arrive uninvited on to the UK shores. The narrative media never utter a single word of protest about that. Of course they don't. Because the media are not responsible. The media are not in the business of enhancing society. They are in the business of creating drama, sensation, getting advertising, hopefully influencing opinions, to get more advertising, to create more sensations, to create more drama, to keep people befuddled with not the facts, but opinion, and opinion that is not fact-based. Boris Johnson, I have no doubt, and Priti Patel would do what they can to solve the migrant problem. But of course, we have the French actively encouraging people to cross the North Sea to seek shelter here, notwithstanding the fact that the law is very clear about the fact that refugees get asylum in the first port of call. They don't have the right to shop around for where they would like to end up. And this is not being inhumane. This is being factual. I come from a background that has been dispossessed several times in the last century and a bit. And I speak with a certain degree of understanding as well as compassion for people who are dispossessed, usually for political reasons, and want to seek a better life elsewhere. But it doesn't alter the fact that the migrants that flood into this country have no legal right to enter the country. And it is a massive and ever-growing problem that we need cooperation with the Europeans. And even when we were a part of Europe, we got no cooperation because they don't want them in their countries. And so they're happy to shove them into ours. The whole thing is a shocking disgrace and shows yet again how untrustworthy the average politician is. Hilda Trellis says, "What a wonderful life-affirming start to your video. It made my day. The puppies are absolutely adorable. 3 hearts. Do you think, Lady C, that H has the mental capacity to be a counsellor of state? Has there ever been a royal prince or princess who was disqualified because of their, in quotation marks, hardness of understanding? End of quotes. And question mark. No. Stupidity does not disqualify royalty from fulfilling its obligations. And the obligations of a counsellor of state are primarily to do what the government of the day and the royal advisors tell him or her to do. They do not or should not have too many opinions of their own. They are there as substitutes for the monarch in terms of signing documents and processing the legal procedures so that things are implemented that need to be implemented and things signed off on, etc. They're not there as political activists, so they really don't need to have any intelligence whatsoever. They simply need to be obedient, and when they're told to sign here, because the government wants that signed and that was passed by Parliament, they sign, as simple as that. So, and no prince or princess has ever been disqualified for what you call hardness of understanding, and I would call rank stupidity. And some of them have been remarkably stupid, remarkably. Jan Irving says, "Thank you, Lady C, for wading into matters. I count on listening to your wisdom to help make my own opinions, since it's so hard to find much sense with the media, which is a joke mostly." Well, I hate to tell you, I couldn't agree more. I really couldn't agree more. I am increasingly dispirited by the rank irresponsibility of the mainstream media. Where is it going to end? I'll tell you, they need to be very careful, because they could be pushing us over the edge of a precipice, and it's not going to end well. Now my question, how would you clear up the problems of the royal family if you were the Queen? That would be very entertaining to hear about if you take it up. Love the puppies. Thanks for sharing them. Well, I'm going to answer the question because I do have certain opinions as to what is the most constructive way of proceeding. First of all, I would not tolerate Harry and Meghan's conduct. I would take the view that if you are out, you are out, and for the duration that you are out, you need to put your royal titles into abeyance, and you are going to be the son of a duke. As simple as that. That's what I would do where Harry and Meghan are concerned. I would strip them of their royal status rather more visibly than they have been stripped by the Queen. The Queen has thought rather naively, in my view, although I understand the nuances and why she has done what she has done to the extent she has done it. But that Understanding doesn't necessarily mean agreeing with. And I do not agree with the stance of they give up the Royal Highness and they can waft around pretending to be fully fledged royals in America. I would cut them off entirely financially unless they were going to play ball according to the royal system. I would say what the Queen has said. You have to be in or out. You can't be half in, half out. Well, she said you can't be half in, half out. And they're half in and half out. And they're exploiting every loophole because Meghan is a very clever operator. Make no mistake about it. And she is in bed with very clever, one could almost say malign operators. Harry, of course, goes along with the whole thing because it appeals to his monumental ego. I mean, if ever there was the living proof of what spoiling a child does, it's Harry. Insofar as the others are concerned, what would I do? I would make Edward's children fully fledged Royal Highnesses. Well, they are, but I would acknowledge that they were. I would have them join the team. I would have the York girls join the team. I would make absolutely sure that Sarah York was not allowed to have any part whatsoever to do with anything official. Prince Andrew is a little bit more troubling. I would have to put him on ice for a while and see how things worked out. But morally speaking, he has never been proven to have done anything wrong, and one would have to take that fact into account. So in some limited way, I would be allowing him down the line to seek restitution along the lines of John Profumo. Although John Profumo was guilty and admitted to being guilty, and Andrew has never admitted to being guilty, and there is a lot of doubt as to whether Andrew was guilty of anything except arrogance and stupidity, neither of which is actually a sin or a crime. But I think maybe he could do sterling work with, along the lines of what William Gladstone did, fallen women. I think that would be something fruitful for him to start out with. I would make sure that if Meghan and Harry's children are not brought up here, they are excluded until they are 18, and at that point, if they wished to be included, they would be given a chance, not a right, a chance. I would not make them prince or princess when Charles succeeds to the throne, but then again, of course, I'm not going to be Charles, I'm going to be the Queen, so I suppose that's beyond my remit, but I would keep them as non-royal at the moment. That's what I would do. And I would revert to a virtually traditional royal family role, whereby they are all visibly seen to be doing public service. You know, 98% of what the royals do is really dull and boring. It's very repetitious, it's very unglamorous, it's long hours, it's lots of little things that are important for the national good and to encourage people. But glamorous? No. And I would also make absolutely sure that anybody else who was going, I would ensure wherever possible that anybody else who wanted to marry an outsider, that I would have certain rules and regulations laid down that would exclude the possibility of a Meghan Markle from ever entering the royal family. That's what I would do. There was ample evidence before the wedding that she was going to be trouble, and nobody heeded the warning. They were so terrified that if they stood up to their objections about her as a character, that they would be accused of being colour prejudiced. Well, it's happened. We all know that the royal family is not colour prejudiced. She was given every chance, far more chances than anybody else who has ever married into the royal family has been given. Invited for Christmas, bloody, bloody, blah, allowed to live with him, bloody, bloody, blah, on and on. I don't need to repeat all the ways in which she was embraced to the bosom, and like Cleopatra's asp, she bit. So that's what I would do. Lonnie Lone Looney says, is it just me, or is it strange for royalty to be receiving awards? They usually create and give out the awards, right? Harry looks so uncomfortable at that award show. I'm pretty sure when you are born a prince, you've already won the grand prize. Lonnie Lone Looney, you have hit the nail on the head. Royalty is not supposed to be receiving awards. That giving public service is their job. They don't and should not be getting awards for doing their job. They should be doing their job well because it is their duty. They don't need awards. They shouldn't be receiving awards. And yes, to be born a prince is to receive the grand prize. You've won the lottery upon conception in some ways. But of course, let's remember, Harry and Meghan did not receive the award straightforwardly. They gave, or somebody gave $100,000 on their behalf if they personally didn't give it. And since Sunshine Sachs was up to the hair in the whole thing, you can depend on it that Harry and Meghan didn't push their hand in their pockets. One other client, I'm pretty sure, would have done, and the whole thing has been carefully orchestrated for Archewell to make a donation, and they're forming a partnership in return for which Harry and Meghan are given an award, and Meghan evidently is given being a creature who loves to micromanage is even given the colour of the background so her dress can blend in. You couldn't make it up. S. Downey says, Dear Lady C, always enjoy your point of view on all subjects. Thank you. 2 things I wanted to ask, say. I'm retired now, but for years I worked for the US government as an Inspector General Auditor. One of the things I worked on was the agency's response to FOIA requests and the exceptions. There are 9 of them, and 2 of them have to do with what Harry says he's entitled to. I don't know if the UK has the same or similar laws and rules, but this would cover it if they do. Well, we have the similar common law, but not all our rules are the same. Nevertheless, the points you're about to make are interesting and well worth listening to. What Harry is demanding, and they do demand, they never request, is exemption 5, called, quotes, privileged communications within and between agencies, including those protected by the deliberative process privilege, end of quotes. This process is when groups and committees who have to make decisions about how the government will address something or making rules and guidance they must follow, those individual members need to be able to speak freely so they can bring up devil's advocate opinions or have heated exchanges, which can sometimes happen. And if they can't do that in an atmosphere free from outside influence or the threat of retribution later, it has what is called a chilling effect on the people who need to make difficult decisions for the benefit of the government and its citizens. Then the country will suffer. Not only may I say, and I'm going to pick up back on this because this is really important, but I want to interject at this point. Not only do these people need the protection of a screen, so to speak, but their identities should not be revealed because retribution can follow in many varying forms. For the subject of an inquiry to be given the identities of these people would be to hamper not only freedom of expression, but hamper the freedom from retribution that might follow when you have a retributive personality, which there's no doubt Harry and Meghan are very into retribution. To pick up back. So that's the reason, number 1, Harry needs to take a hike, and hopefully the UK judge will let him know that. And may I say again, to interject at this point, there is a similar concern and there are similar reasons for the identities of the decision makers to be kept secret in this country. And also relevant to Harry's demand is exemption 6, quotes, information that, if disclosed, would invade another's individual's personal privacy, end of quotes. Government workers should not have to give up their individual rights to privacy because some wealthy, privileged, entitled, childish man wants to know who said no to his request. I hope this makes sense. Thanks for another great show, exclamation mark. And thanks, my dear, for great observations. This cuts to the heart of the matter. Let's see what the judges do in the judicial review. I would sincerely hope that they tell Harry to take not only a hike, but a very descriptive one at that. Gigi goes shopping, says. Let's not forget the brilliant and accomplished Condoleezza Rice. In 2001, Rice was appointed National Security Advisor by President George W. Bush, becoming the first African-American woman and the first woman to hold the post, and went on to become the first black woman to serve as US Secretary of State. Gigi goes shopping, you're one of several people who reminded me about Condoleezza Rice. My omission. I should not have forgotten her, but I did. And yes, I'm glad that all of you have mentioned Condi because she was great. Faze Panda Crew says, I thought Meghan looked good too. Well, I'm glad somebody agrees with me, even though I don't want to say it. And that's honest. And yes, Harry is dumb enough to marry her again. I find it so hard to believe that Harry isn't even a drop of himself. So sad. He did have a good personality and he appeared to have a kind heart. So sad you don't even see a drop of himself. Do you agree? Oh, I agree that we don't see any evidence of the old, jolly, hail fellow, well met. I'm one of the lads, Harry. But I think we're seeing Harry. I don't think this is a total creation of Meghan's. I think Meghan has encouraged Harry to liberate the true Harry, the Harry that nobody can stand. But that's the real Harry. Pompous, opinionated, puerile, puffed up with his own importance, hypocritical. I'm just Harry. But don't forget I'm the Duke of Sussex. And don't forget I'm too important to fly commercial. I need to be on private planes, and that brother of mine, he let him fly commercial. He's not important. He's only going to be the king. I'm going to be the emperor of the world with Megsy baby. Contessa Jones says, Lady C, African Americans make up just 13% of the US population. Just 13%. Nobody discusses this in the media. If you ask a person on the street, they would say the number is 50% because of all the media attention. Meanwhile, Hispanics make up 15% and you don't hear much about them. AAs have cornered the victim market, causing the Caucasian population to feel guilty for their whiteness. It's an all-woke agenda. I'm also a person of colour. You certainly are, Contessa Jones. I looked you up. Very fetching person of colour too. Thank you for the statistics. It's a very useful statistic to have. Evidently, in the United Kingdom, the people of African and or mixed African descent account for, I forget if it's 3 or 4% of the overall population, and the subcontinentals, etc., account for another, I think it's up to 11 or 13%. I think it's 11%. I can't remember exactly now. Not very good on figures. And yes, I get your point. Every time I turn on the television now, the ads show to what extent the woke culture has crept in to advertising and the media attention. But I don't think that that is necessarily going to be a problem in the long run, because I think everybody is overcompensating now who was undercompensating before. And, you know, the drum always gets beaten loudest at the beginning of the song. But with the passage of time, I think things will quieten down. But I get your point. And we are going to touch upon another rather interesting point from Anne Eichenberger. My hometown was bordered by one of the major American Indian tribes. I witnessed this village's attitude towards the residents of the Indian reservation. For 3 summers, I worked as a lifeguard for the Indian nation. Probably the best job of my entire life. During those summers, my mother refused to tell her friends where I worked. A few years later, my ex-husband worked for a major law firm prominent in American Indian law. My mother made his visits so miserable that he would travel to my hometown without telling my parents that he was in town. I can sympathize with that one. In summary, I say that era sums up with the phrase, "It was better to be a Black American than to be a Native American in my childhood. I was born in the 1950s. And that, Anne Eichenberger, I share because the research shows that what you say is absolutely right and true. But you see, there's no doubt that there is a sound reason why the Native Americans have been ground into the dust the way they have. Because it is their land, it is their country. Everybody else is an interloper. And America has established the principle in the Middle East that certain segments of a population deserve certain territory because 2,000 years ago, they occupied it for 1,000 years. Well, how do you think that's going to play out if Native Americans say, "Excuse me, I want back New York, give me Fifth Avenue"? You see the difficulty? Now, of course, the world has changed, and I'm not for a second recommending that people who own apartments and shops on Fifth Avenue should turn them over to the Native Americans. But I am saying that the Native Americans deserve justice. And so far, they haven't got it. But then, they're not as large or as vociferous a population as the Afro-American population. But hopefully their day will come too, because let's remember the Afro-Americans suffered for a long time before their day came. And in fairness, if they crow a little bit, which they sometimes do, who can blame them? We all like to crow when it's our turn. But hopefully one of these days, the Native Americans will have a chance to crow with delight as well. And on that note, I will say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If you like, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and please keep the questions coming in. Remember, this can't be done without you. God bless and goodbye. There are Mickey and the puppies at it. Oh dear. Mickey's being such a good